Ding 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 ding. Anyway, that'll do for now.
Welcome to Vahagraphy Talk. Today is number 7. We got Frames here from India. And who do we have here? Your face looks awfully familiar, sir.
My name's Matt Irwin.
Matt Irwin, man, thank you for joining us on Vahagraphy Talk number 7. It's a pleasure to have you. And wow, what can I say, man? You're a big influence on YouTube and a photographer, and I'm so happy to have you here on the show.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I love the community, and let's do more of this stuff. That's what it's all about. So let's talk photography and everything photography. I just love it.
Yeah. And before we get into that, I want to talk about YouTube.
Yeah. Okay.
And I always wanted to know how you started, when you started, and why.
Well, I think I pretty much probably started like everybody starts. It's like you've been a watcher for, like, I think I started looking at YouTube for reviews of camera gear. And I think the first time I was looking was when the Nikon D4 was coming out. It was around late 2011, 2012. And at the time I found Kai and Locke from Digital Rev TV. And I found Matt Granger, and that was 2012. So that's how I got into the YouTube space. It was like, oh, this is interesting. And then after, it probably took me 4 or 5 years to go, well, look, I think I've got my own story to tell. I've been a photographer for over 25 years. I don't see a lot of people who are like me, where they've been a photographer forever and then they start a channel. It looked a bit more like there were people who started channels in the photography space. And so I thought, I've got a story to tell. And that's how it started. And then it just started with, like, one episode every 2 weeks, and then it got to an episode a week. And
because I'm a big fan,
Thank you.
I mean, you're great, and you're a Nikon guy. You are, right? Nikon guy?
Yeah. So my history is very simple. Well, no, actually, that's completely false. I in the 80s, when I was a teenager, I had a Pentax K1000, which is on the shelf right there, and I was a student. And then I bought myself my first Nikon FM something in 1992. And then in 1996, I purchased an F5, which was just an outstanding camera, which is over on that shelf over there. And then obviously digital arrived in the coming years. And by 2004, I purchased the D70, the D2X, the D3, the D700, and on it went from there. So Nikon is the through thread, and it's always been the backbone. But if I had a use case, for instance, if I want to have a camera in my pocket to take to a party, in the late noughties or the early 2000s, there were lots of great compact cameras. And I bought Nikon and Canon ones, and I found that Canon made better compact cameras for me, for my use case. So I've always played with other brands, but Nikon has been the absolute through line.
Same thing here. Same thing here. Nikon is my go-to, but I don't limit myself. We're all photographers, so why limit yourself? I'm not endorsed by anybody.
No.
And, so, I mean, with me, and I think Frames share the same sentiment, with me starting this YouTube thing about 16 months ago, I totally, when people comment on the comments, and when they leave a comment, because of you, I'm buying this lens. It puts, I sort of step back and I go, whoa, we got some pressure going. This lens better deliver.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to feel confident about what you're saying. And, for me, I love photography so much. And I've literally been taking photos since I was like 7. It's just in my blood, and I don't have I have no desire to say anything than my reaction, my genuine reactions. I'm not paid by anybody at all on any level for anything. I have no deals with anybody. So it's just my reaction. Do I know everything? Absolutely not. And it is, my experience is absolutely driven by my style of photography and my use case. So you are yet to ever see me really shoot bird in flight. Although in the episode I just dropped last night, I was photographing a seagull, but I don't think I was photographing a seagull with a 40mm lens. I don't think that counts, does it? I don't have my 600mm lens with a falcon at like half a kilometer away. So yeah, we've just got to be true to ourselves. And I think that shines through. Don't you think? If you're being yourself, and we're all best at being ourselves. Don't try to be anyone else, you know?
It makes you think when you realize that people base their judgment so much on what YouTubers say, or what people, personalities on YouTube, on the platform say. So it's very important to remind ourselves and also remind the audience from time to time that, look, it's just my opinion. Always do your due research, you know, that you deserve for yourself, you know.
I totally agree. And all three of us could not reiterate enough that it's only our limited experience. We're not, you know, when you test a car, for example, for crash safety testing, you know, if they've got high-speed cameras, they've got lots of equipment, they have multiple cars. Like, we are not doing hardcore scientific tests, and it should be considered the same for every single YouTuber. I mean, someone like Gerald Undone tries really hard to test things really, really well, and he's been very successful in that. And I don't get anywhere near the sort of work that he does. So there are some people who do a lot of test charts, and, you know, they'll hit record and wait for something to overheat and all that sort of thing. But I'm a photographer first. I'm not a technician. So I'm going to play to my strengths, and my strengths are I'm a photographer. So I want to show to people, this is what I can do with this lens. You could do the same thing too. And it's true. Yeah. Like, you can't fake that, can you? Like, if on your channel you show an amazing photograph, that's proof that camera and that lens can do that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you how much, like, since I consider myself now sort of a YouTuber. I mean, I don't know, photographer, YouTuber, whatever you want to call it. But I wanted to ask you, because I noticed that you're very, very consistent. You know, you're always on it. You're on top of it, you know, and that's, I'm like, wow. How much time does this YouTube thing take out of your daily life?
Yeah, great question. And I think we'd have to break it up into parts. So there is the thinking of ideas, and as you would know, that happens everywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. It's like, oh yeah, let's do a video about that. And then there's the execution, the filming, and then there's the editing, and then there is the working with the community and enjoying the interactions. And they are four very separate areas.
Do you do your own editing?
I do about 65% of my editing.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know, you might have seen the guy that works in my gallery.
Yeah.
So I got him to start editing about 1.5 years ago as well. And because we've been in lockdown for most of the last 1.5 years, it's actually allowed him to continue to work when we weren't able to open the retail store. So when we're open, he does less editing, and when we're shut, he does more editing. So but I do about, let's say about 65 to 75% of it on average across the entire channel. So my time, shooting is the quickest part, but as you would know, if you just do a straight to camera piece, it might only take 20 minutes, and then it might take 2 hours to edit. But like the video that I dropped last night, which is in the streets, and there's screen captures and there's shots from my mobile phone and all sorts of stuff, those things take like 20 hours to edit. So to answer your question, because it's hard to break it up, but I would say I spend something like 20 to 30 hours a week.
Wow, that's awesome.
But also the amount of time that goes into cross-referencing what you're saying versus what others are saying.
Sure.
Developing a certain point of view, putting the thought together, I think, and there's a lot of space for also sort of recalibrating your thinking itself. Like, you had a few assumptions and you thought you were going to say this, but then you look at what you have done and probably change a few things in commentary. So, you know, it's all sort of an iterative process, isn't it? I kind of,
Absolutely.
and I've seen you do that as well. I've seen you come back to a point and say, by the way, I have a slightly different point of view on this.
Things continue to evolve. You collect more information. Someone else has used a lens or a camera or done something, and you iterate along. So there's no question. And I have no interest in going out to the world and saying, this is the truth. This is the absolute truth, the fundamental, final truth about anything. There's no such thing. I was having a chat to someone about face detect and how, I don't know if you saw the E to Z video I just did, where it's the face detect with that. And what I've learned with the Z system is that in backlight situations, it struggles, like heavy backlight situations.
Yeah.
It struggles like you've got the camera basically looking into the sun. It struggles more with face detect than if you don't. Now, testing that, how could anyone almost have the same test? Because, for example, in Australia, the sunlight's quite different to in the Northern Hemisphere. So we're actually going to get different results. I don't know if you've ever been to Australia, but when I go to anywhere north, whether it's Europe or North America, the light is different. And then more human beings live there. There are more particles in the air. There's more pollution. We're very lucky. We're surrounded by ocean. So the light here is extraordinarily sharp and harsh in Australia and in the midday sun. And we've also got problems with our ozone layer and all sorts of stuff down here. So there is a significant difference in what light looks like just between the Northern and the Southern Hemisphere. And all I'm really trying to say here is it's very hard for one person to criticize someone else's person's findings when it's almost impossible for us to copy each other's findings, especially when you're shooting out in the field and you're shooting for real. And that's what I shoot. I shoot outside. I don't shoot in. If we just set up a test bench, then yes, we can have the same results.
Unless you're Fro and frames. You got into it with Fro.
No.
Yeah, how did that go? I saw your video with the. I mean, look, I don't even get into that stuff because
you do a good job at it. I mean,
not because. Can I tell you guys, just between you and me and everybody that's watching this, Fro did his love letter to Nikon. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah.
I was so upset. I made a whole video. It's a beautiful video. It's a glorious video, and then at the last minute, I pulled it because it's like. But I don't want to get into it. Like I don't want to get into it, and
that's the right. I mean, good for you. You know what I mean? You don't have to.
No, that's it's a personal choice because I think frames what you're doing is great, and you're just showing with facts. I wasn't really talking about the photography side of it. I was talking about the way that he was suggesting that he would be impacting Nikon's. He was basically saying that he was basically saying, well, not only did he say he was impacting Nikon's bottom line, but he was actually saying Nikon are listening to him, and because of him, they will improve their autofocus. And it's like the Z9's probably being designed since the Z7 arrived. It's probably been worked on for 3 years. Dude, this video that you made, it's a month ago, has zero impact. They know their focus is not, when it comes to just tracking birds and things, they know their focus is not the same as Sony and Canon, and they've been working on it for years. Like, don't try and tell the world that it's because of you. It's not. I'm saying
exactly.
Politely, it's not.
Frames got into it.
Matt, and you know what, and Vagan, it takes about 5 years to develop a face cream. I'm not kidding.
To develop a what? Sorry.
A facial cream.
A facial, exactly. Testing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the kind of time it takes to, I would say that facial cream is far more simpler to make in the context of a camera, right?
Yep.
And that getting the licensing done, approvals done, getting the pack, it's crazy amount of work. Everything that you see today has been in the making for more than 3 years, easily. Anything.
There's a really great video from the vice president or something of Tower Jazz, which is now Tower Industries, who we know make a few sensors for Nikon and maybe make them for Red and Arri and people like that. And it's 2 years old and it's at a trade show, and he's talking about Nikon and Nikon's dependence on Sony. And he's talking about, he's basically, he could be sharing with us sort of without sharing with us that they're working on the Z9 sensor even back then. Like, I'll give you guys a link because there's a really interesting video. I've been wanting to make a video about it, but I haven't had time. But this is 2 years ago, and they're talking about high dynamic range and high frame rates. And as we know, Nikon did their announcement around this little square sensor. Remember at the start of the year, they had this little square sensor that did 1,000 frames per second, and it had ultra high dynamic range.
1 inch sensor. Yeah,
that's right. Well, this VP from Tower Jazz is talking about how they're working on that same sort of technology with people. So yeah, these things are a long time coming. And anyway,
I want to ask you one more thing about YouTube. How do you deal with haters? I mean, when they leave hate, I mean, I don't know if you get a lot of this, but I think the more successful you get in this thing, the more haters will come at you.
It's really interesting because I've been talking about Z since Z arrived, the Z cameras. I had so many people, like I had, I don't know whether you guys do this, but sometimes you have to and fro with somebody in the comments where they write a whole page, you write a whole page, and there'd be dudes where this would go on for 4 days, and we'd both be writing 500 words.
Oh my God!
And
it's been a problem with me,
yeah, and they'd be telling me that, like, one guy 3 years ago said Nikon will be dead in 18 months, you know, that sort of stuff. And it's just like, dude, you don't even know what you're talking about. And then after a while, you kind of realize, because the very best trolls sound like real people, right? They sound like real, sane people, when actually all they're interested in is seeing how long they can wind you up for. So it took me a year or two to kind of realize that the absolute best trolls sound plausible and real. And so they reel you in, and you have these long protracted conversations with them. And now you just change your language and you shut it down quicker.
Like I'm at a stage where I don't, like, it takes so much of my time to respond to comments.
Exactly.
But I kind of feel guilty not responding. You know, there was a level where you had to not, like, you couldn't respond to every comment you get, obviously, you know.
Last year I was responding to like 99%. This year, with just growth, yes, I can't do it.
So viewers, don't feel bad if we don't respond to your comment. We read it. Yes. But if we can't respond, it's just like, we want to make content for you guys.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I do read everything, and that's true. Unless it's a bit of a viral video that gets like 2,000 views in the first hour, and then it's like comments are going so fast, it's a bit like a live stream. It's hard to keep up. But for me, I have to drop my videos at 11 o'clock at night, which means then I go to sleep, and I will wake up to 200 comments, and that's quite a steep hill to climb. So you do your best, and I think I think everybody out there, you know, knows that we're doing our best, and we try and respond to as much as we can. But yeah, trolls, I mean, there's obvious ones where you just, I don't know. I mean, have you guys banned anybody, or, you know, deleted anybody or whatever?
Never.
I have not. But Matt, one of the things you touched upon is I find it a very interesting thing. A lot of people have come and said that, you know, Nikon is going to die within the next 18 months or 10 months or 1 year, and or, you know, but I often have felt this. I don't know if you have ever viscerally felt it, but I've often felt that that the people who say that are actually deep inside, they're terrible Nikon lovers. They want Nikon to be the best. And because they feel that I'm not being able to claim that Nikon is best, and they want to tell Nikon, guys, I don't like people telling shit about you. I'm now being tough on it. It's sort of a mother's tough love, is what I've felt a lot of times, that the people who at times love to hate Nikon love to love Nikon the most.
Yeah, I think that is a category. I think there's a category of kind of F users who are, and I'm not really sure why they're angry, because I'm an F user, right? And I'm like, so I'm just going to talk for a kind of a minute here to just remind everybody. So it's 2017. What camera arrives in 2017? It's the D850, considered the best camera of its class ever. Okay, of its class. Let's just remember, of its class. That's important. Stick a pin in it, as what's his name? I've forgotten his name. Anyway, we'll keep going. And then and then we hear about a year later that the mirrorless is arriving and the Z7 arrives. Okay, so if you're a professional, you're still struggling to get hold of a D850 a year later because it's so popular that people still don't have one yet. And the Z7 arrives. So it's like, is a Nikon professional going to have any troubles doing their job because the Z7's arrived? No, because they want a D850. They've either bought one already or they want one. So this whole notion that Nikon had failed, it's like, you just got a brand new camera and it's considered the best in class. And then if you're aware of the cycle, it's a 4-year cycle normally from like your D800 to your D850. So technically the D850 replacement is not due until actually right now, right? So it's Nikon aren't running late. There's nothing wrong. Everything is actually nominal still at this stage right now. So the fact that people were saying to me Nikon's failing and they've made all these mistakes, it was very clear to me that the Z7 was like, the Z7 and the Z6 were like, this is version 1. Now, who out there bought version 1 of an alpha camera? Most people didn't. I did. I bought the Sony A7R in 2013 because I was interested in it. But guess what? It wasn't great. It had a lot of problems. The ergonomics, the fact that the raw files were lossy raw files. I mean, I could go on and on. I don't want a Sony bash. It's not about that. It's the fact that it was version 1. So everybody ease up on the version 1 of the Z7 and the Z6. And let's look at the version 1 of the Canons. Again, the Nikons were actually slightly better cameras from my perspective. They had in-body stabilization and a few other things that made them better cameras. So this was the landscape that I arrived in, was like, I don't know what everybody's talking about. We've got the D850. The professionals aren't in trouble. We've got the D5. We've got the D500. These cameras are all new.
I asked myself, do these people actually shoot? The people that talk?
Yeah, exactly. So to answer your question, Frames, I think there's a few groups of people. There's just haters. There's just people who hate. There's definitely what I think what I've seen is there's people who've given up on Nikon and moved to say Sony, and then they want to justify their choice of moving.
Yeah.
And so they hate on Nikon.
No, that's a good profiling.
Yeah,
I think there's some psychological truth to that. But I also feel that even after they move to Sony, the reason why they want to feel like justifying that move is because there are some things they still remember from Nikon that's great, right? They think, I moved to Sony, but there are a couple of things that I don't like, which used to be great in Nikon.
Yeah.
But I want to be happy about it. How can I be? Unless I mentally can put it down. So what is the biggest better?
Yeah, what is the biggest thing? I mean, name my biggest reasons why I shoot Nikon primarily is ergonomics, glass, and colors. Do you feel the same?
I mean, the raw files?
Yeah, look, for me, it's like, I don't want to make it Sony versus Nikon or any of that sort of stuff. This is why I invented this brand here. Or I don't know if I invented it, but I create.
Yeah, that's genius.
Because that's actually how I feel. But my personal experience, like history is so important, and people love to just remove history. It's 2017, 2018. I'm a professional photographer. I've got a D850. I'm interested in YouTube. I'm interested in doing more video. The D850 doesn't do it. I buy a Z7. It's easy. I can use exactly the same batteries. I can use the F to Z adapter and use 14 F-mount lenses. I can use all my flash system. The menus are much the same. The ergonomics are very similar. Why wouldn't I just transition? And I own the Sony A7R and I own the Sony A7R III. I still have both of those cameras. I have multiple Sony lenses. I find the Nikons far more pleasurable. It's just pleasurable. It's pleasurable to hold. It's pleasurable to use. It feels like it's tougher. And the files. I mean, people talk about, you just put on you just fix it in post, but it's like, but I don't have to fix it in post. It just comes out beautiful, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know what gear you guys have, but like use any of the Z prime, use any of the Z lenses. Actually, I can't swear enough how amazing all of the Z lenses are.
Yeah. Well, to me, if I'm holding a camera and if it doesn't feel good in my hands, that's a non-starter for me. I don't care how good it is.
That's it. And for me, it's reached a point where it's just an extension of your body. And if ultimately the camera kind of disappears and you're just taking photos, then that's gold. And I don't know how much of that is using Nikon before or not, but like I own a Hasselblad, it's huge. It's a huge proper medium format Hasselblad, and it's super heavy, and it's beautiful, but it's got its pros and cons. So yeah, no, I use the Nikon for a balance of reasons. And now as the system has matured, and I say this in every third video, for my use case, the system has nothing missing for me. It doesn't lack anything for me. And I don't know about you guys, but I shoot stills and video at the same time. And the fact that you can just flick that little switch and you've got, and you've got sandboxed settings. So it's like, this is my still settings. This is my video settings.
That's awesome.
And it is a 1 second. Like it's like, oh, that's really awesome. Okay. Still, click video. 5 seconds. Okay. Yep. Got it. Okay. Flick back to the stills. Click. You can't do that on a Sony. You can't do it on an A7R3.
And you know what, even if when you're in video mode and you just change back to photo mode, it just stops the video, saves the file automatically. Yeah. You don't have to press stop record and save the file and then change.
You're so right. So for me, as someone who's working and as I've said, I spend 30-40 hours a week just making this stuff, let alone my other work. Everything just needs to be as seamless and as simple as possible. And because AF tracking, which seems to be the only subject left, right? It's the only subject left that anyone can talk about, is irrelevant to me, because I've been like, how did photographers work beforehand? We worked by moving the pointer. Like, it's just irrelevant. And people go, oh yeah, but you want it for that occasion. Well, no, I don't shoot that stuff. I never have, and at this stage in my career, I won't be employed to shoot that stuff. So.
Yeah. For me, it's like when I do weddings, it's like no matter how good it is, I still prefer single focus point.
Well, this is the thing that it's like you're shooting, and I've shot about 100 weddings in my career, and then it was like, I'm going to retire from weddings because I've got kids and it's weekends and all that stuff. So, but I still do lots of group work, and of course, how does it know which face you want? And Nikon's actually created a good system that you can have a box. I don't know if anyone else has done that, but then you can have the face within the box, but still single point.
Yeah,
I still use it 99.99% of the time. So did I answer the question as to why I use Nikon? I mean,
yeah, you did. Well, I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, it's to Nikon shooters. It's if you're a Nikon shooter, you know what's up. Basically.
I mean, how I would say it in a sentence is I feel it's effortless to create stunning images. And that's not marketing. I do it. I mean, you see me, I walk out onto the street and I take images that I'll publish in a book. And I'm not spending 4 days, washing the streets with water and waiting for the golden hour. And, these cameras, they just perform. Not to say another camera won't. I'm not saying that, but there's a lot of other reasons, ergonomics and color science and blah, blah, blah.
There was this very inexplicable, difficult to explain reason, like the way I see the files get rendered, there's a 3D dimensionality to all of especially the mirrorless bodies, like especially the first gen Z6. I don't know whether it's the lens or the way the sensors create the image, the way you the image transitions from the highlight areas to the shadow areas. I've never seen that in any other. And I've shot the same pictures. I don't know. It's like more 3D, more alive. And how come people don't talk about it, or is it just I'm imagining it? I've always felt it.
No, I would agree. And it's something I didn't talk about is dynamic range, which I use with streets all the time. And the dynamic range has always been class leading since probably the D3. So,
Yeah.
and that's something that's important to me. Like if you said to me, Matt, what do you want? What do you want next? No, I don't want 40 frames per second. No, I don't want that. I don't need a 15,000 shutter. I would like higher ISO and more dynamic range and 16-bit. Give me that, right? That's what I want. But I totally agree with you, frames. And I've seen that most happen with the beautiful primes and the dimensionality. Like I talk about that dimensionality a lot with that 1.2 Vahagraphy, and you played with that camera and you saw the difference.
What's your favorite focal length? Do you have one?
No. I actually want to make a series of videos, which is, okay, today we're going out with the 20mm and we're going to see if we can create amazing work from macro through to portraiture, through to landscape, through to birding on the 20mm. And now we're going to do it with a 400mm. And that I want to do that. I want to basically prove that almost every lens can do everything. You just have to be good at your craft, which is the whole point, isn't it? We want to be good at our craft.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not quite true, but favorite. No, look, I genuinely don't. I've done this for so long. I've really enjoyed using the 40 and the 50 mils, these Z lenses. Like that video I just dropped last night. All four of those lenses are they're great. They're fun to shoot with, and they'll allow you to do portraiture, and you could do group photography with them. You could do weddings with them. You can do landscape with them. And about the only thing you couldn't do with them is, say, wildlife, right? But you can pretty much do everything else. And that's amazing.
Your street photography is striking. I noticed that you do a lot of night photography. And
I think that's about, as I said, the light here in Australia is very harsh, and if you shoot in the middle of the day, and I might get smacked for this, who knows? But I kind of don't like what the Australian light looks like during the day. I like what the northern hemisphere light looks like during the day because it's much softer. And go to Europe, go to Paris, go to Canada, wherever you are.
Have you been to LA?
I have, yes. It's been too long. I'm looking forward as soon as we can fly again. I am all over the USA.
Next time you come out, let me know.
Man, we'll hook up. Don't you worry. And so it's also the light. I really like the fact that nighttime has so many different. It has so many different kind of individual moments happening. Like daytime, you've got the sun. Boom. And about the most interesting thing you can do with the sun is maybe throw in a fill flash, or I love that style of photography where you overwhelm the sun with a flash. I love that, a portraiture, that style where the flash is so bright that even in daylight, it looks kind of like nighttime, but it's not. So I like that. But at nighttime, you might have 1,000 light sources or 7 light sources, and they're all different. Look, I've always wanted to be a filmmaker, and I think I don't know. I don't know why night. Yeah. I mean, if you go through my book, it's probably a mix of 50-50, night and day.
Yeah, that's great. No, amazing work, Matt. Amazing work.
Thank you.
I want to touch on this real quick. For me, all the camera manufacturers, you can get the job done with any camera.
Absolutely.
They all do good at certain things, some more than others. It's at this level, every camera manufacturer these days, it does a good job. It just comes down to personal preference, what you want more, what you want less. I want to get your take on that. The reason why I choose Nikon is, I started with the F3 and I fell in love, but the thing is that we have a lot to choose from these days, and every brand is coming out with this, that, and then it's like gets confusing for the beginner photographer.
Yep.
If you were to give one simple piece of advice to a beginner right now, choosing the camera and lens, what would that be?
Yeah, easy. Walk into a store. How does it feel in your hand? How does it feel up to your eye? I'm a left eye shooter, and some cameras are not as well made for left eye shooters as right eye shooters because they're mostly made for right eye shooters. how does it sound when you take a shot? I think that's a real exhaust note on a car. So it's got to, because cameras are all much the same. And let's say you're a casual photographer, you know, you're not going to do bird in flight. So as you say, you can just buy any of them. It's all those feelings. How does it feel? And how does it look? When you look at it, you go, oh, that's a hot little number. Or do you go, it's a bit ugly. I don't want it. I mean, these are like, I want to promote people to lust their camera. So they want to take it out. So that A, they go for a walk because that's really good for you. B, you see the world and see people and realize the world is just the most stunning, beautiful, unique place in the universe. So that's a beautiful thing. And then you create and you bring happiness, because at the end of the day, we actually all need to be as happy as we possibly can be, because, you know, life's tough. So it's really got to be how it feels, how it sounds, and does it inspire you to just go for a walk? Yeah. And the other thing about buying a camera, and this is no, it's not to do with cameras. I was going to say, how do you inspire yourself to photograph? Photograph things you love. Photograph, you know, some people love cars, will go photograph cars. Some people love airplanes, so they go shoot air shows. You know, that's another way just to keep getting out there. But sorry, that wasn't your question, Vahagan. I'm so sorry about that.
Well, real quickly, if money was no object, right? I mean, obviously, but would you just skip over DX and go full frame if a beginner?
Oh, yeah. Look, again, I no disrespect to APS-C, but I've never wanted to be there, because I started with 35 mil, you know, film. You're used to the lenses, you're used to everything. And then in that very short period from 2004 to 2007, where I went from film 35 mil to the D3 back to full frame. So I had 3 years in the middle there where I was forced to be an APS-C because that's what Nikon was creating. I didn't enjoy all sorts of aspects of the lenses being different and the focal length being different. So I would also, and again, there's so much debate about this, but I just think there's physics. So there's nothing much to debate. There's just physics. If you've got 12 megapixels APS-C or 12 megapixels full frame, you're going to get a different result, right? Which is better or worse, I'll leave that up to you. But they're going to be different. I think it's better. And your lenses are performing differently, and depth of field performs differently. IBIS performs differently. I think there's an argument that IBIS performs better in a smaller sensor, but a lot of cameras don't have IBIS with small sensors. So I would totally say full frame. And look, there's not much difference. There's not much difference between the Z5 and a Z50 in price. I don't know what it is now, but if you had a choice, I would get the Z5.
Look, I bought one today.
Yeah, about $200.
What?
Right,
what is it?
Is it the Z50?
Z50, yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, amazing.
Sorry, man.
Oh, beautiful.
I'm sorry.
I think you've got a Viltrox on.
Yeah. I have 2 Z6s, but
well, that's all right. Yeah, no, well, I've got a Z50 too. Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, gotta review this guy soon. So the Viltrox 5614.
Oh, you got one of those. They didn't have any to send me. I got the other ones. Good on you.
APS-C.
Exciting.
So
very exciting.
Just I want to touch on a point that you made just now, where you talked about just go to a store and feel for yourself. How is it for you, right? Yeah. And I think not often. I think the way I kind of was describing it to someone asked me, should I go for the Fuji X-T200? Now I was thinking that, you know, there is this side, there is this aspect that there is a personal relationship with the camera, and that begins somewhere. It's a very emotional thing. It starts with probably a sort of a organic feeling towards the camera. Yeah. And we often say how it feels in your hand and how it like the pictures, how you like to see through the viewfinder. And I have always felt that perhaps is more important than the spec sheet. Yeah. At a very human level, it's like, do you agree with it? It's like if you're a horse rider, how would you choose your one? It reminded me of, when I was speaking about it, reminded me of Avatar, the movie where there's like each one of them had a like they used to connect to
a relationship with their bird or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Oh, no question. And I mean, if like Vahagan, you're a wedding photographer, if that camera doesn't feel amazing in your hand for 12 hours, you're in trouble. It has to feel amazing, because I still do events, and we're not young blokes anymore. You get tired, and I tell you, if you don't have a love affair with that camera, and you're starting to feel it as it's 11 o'clock at night, and it's like, hey, bride, can you go home now?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's midnight. Okay, they got to go. And he's just like, I've been holding this camera since 9 a.m. Okay, you gotta love it. You gotta love it.
Are
like,
you leaving now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all these and this nitpicking about, does one focus 1/10 of a second faster? Come on. Most people aren't doing this.
How many shots can you take of people dancing?
Well, but not only that, but it's like mostly we're used to, okay, everyone take a photo, and that's still 99% of photos in the world, right? So this constant hammering on, oh my God, I don't track fast moving objects. Sure, maybe, but it really isn't what most people do, is it? So why don't we focus on what most people do?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, sorry. I've been so passionate about it for so long, and
Do you know of that Matt Irwin? There was another photographer called Matt Irwin.
I do, yeah.
He passed away. He was a celebrity guy.
Yeah.
I Googled you, and I was like, wait a minute.
He died.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's very, so he started about maybe 10 years, because he's like 10 years younger than me. And his people actually...
I just found it like, wow, what? I didn't know about him, but...
Yeah, his people actually contacted me to get my URL, my web site, because I've had mine for so long. This was before he passed away, of course. And I sometimes get email from like Europe, because he was in the UK. People think they were emailing him, and they were emailing me. But we had no connection. We never spoke. We never met. And sadly, I suppose he was only active around about 10, maybe a bit more years.
You're probably like, oh yeah, I'm the celebrity. Yeah, come on over, Rihanna.
Yeah. Well, I had people ringing me up saying, I thought you were dead. So, because it did make headlines. Well, headlines in our world. I don't know, 5 years ago or something like that. I think probably now. Yeah.
I want to touch on two final topics before we wrap this up. What do you say to photographers that are just, well, first of all, before I get into that, when did you take mirrorless seriously? What year?
Yeah. So here we go. Another story. I actually first started playing with it with a Nikon mirrorless. Huh? What? The V1. And people forget that Nikon was actually doing this stuff before the full frame alphas came out. It was 2012, was it? Was it 12 or 11? I'm just I think it was 12. And I was actually in Hong Kong, and I bought, I don't know, it's around here somewhere. I bought the original V1, and it's still got crazy specs, like shoots 240 frames a second or something at, I don't know. It does some really weird things, which is crazy. But the crop factor was just too much, so I gave up on it. But they did supply. I can't remember what the mount is. Is it the V mount? So there was an F to V. I think it's the V mount. There was an F to V adapter, so I was able to mount my full frame F glass on this. So the camera is about this big, and so I put my massive zoom lenses on it. So I started to play with it then. But to answer your question about taking it seriously. Then, of course, the full frame Sonys were announced in towards the end of 2013, and it was like, the A7R has the same sensor in it as the D800. Well, the D800 is my favorite camera. Like, I had two of them. I always buy two flagships for professional work, and I've got to get this. It's the same sensor. And so I got it straight away, and I quickly realized that Sony had crippled it by giving us lossy, or let's call it lossy raw files. And they literally threw away the shadow areas. And I was so spoilt by Nikon's amazing raw files, and I would all the time be pulling out the shadow areas. So it was like, I really wanted to take that camera seriously, but for my style of work, it was like, I would put the files side by side and it just didn't get there. And then it's between 2013 through to 2017, which is where, you just saw the absolute rise of not only was the camera industry around that time selling 100 million cameras a year, and so this is where Fuji and Olympus and all these other brands everybody just took off. And I entertained all of those brands, like, oh, should I get one? I'm really interested. And in the end, I had started my YouTube channel and I was shooting everything with D850s and my D4. And it was like, this is really hard. It's not working very well. And so I looked at every brand, I looked at everything, and that's why I bought a Sony A7R, because it was like, I can use it for R3, because I can use it for stills, and obviously I can use it for my channel. So I bought that just after it came out, and then 6 weeks later, the Z series was announced. And it's like, oh God. So, so I suppose, to answer your question, I was trying to take it seriously from 2013. And it became the real deal for me in 2017 when I got the A7R. Sorry, 2018 when I got the A7R and the Z7, both in that same year.
So you're a really early adopter of, and I think you love technology overall, right?
I do. I would absolutely classify myself as a nerd. Capital up, caps nerd. I'm an early adopter, not just in photography, but just in everything. So. And as photographers, as a working photographer, I think people don't realize that the camera gear is actually a really small cost of your running your overall business. So, here in Australia, if you spent $10,000 a year on camera gear, that's not a very big part of the overall, because back then I had 7 staff, I had a gallery in the city, I had my head office. I was selling a lot of art. Like, I sell a lot of art. I used to sell a lot of more than we do now, artwork to galleries and so on. So, buying a camera just literally to test it. Like, I'd buy it to test it. And that's what the A7R was. So
I saw your on your website, your calendars and your murals, canvases, and
canvas and
really
prints.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that was actually my business. Was 80-90% of my business up until let's say 5 years ago or 7 years ago was selling artwork, photographic artwork. And this is before the digital realm, really, before you could make a business just kind of being online, if that makes sense. So I've done it. I've totally done this whole thing in reverse. I've been selling calendars for 20 years. I've been making greeting cards since 1990. I've made 5 million greeting cards since 1990. So I'm very old school in that respect, but I've also loved technology. Like, I was trying to do digital photography in like 1995 using a video camera, right? And then getting the video signal into a computer, because there was no such thing as a digital stills camera. So that's I was experimenting way back then.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I don't know. Does that answer the question?
Definitely. I want to piggyback on the question, whereas, because I know a lot of press guys, they can't use mirrorless because it just the lenses are not there yet, the autofocus tracking, and just not there yet. That's why they use they use F mount. They use a D5, D6, 400, 500 F4s. But who do you say to these guys that, obviously, I don't know where the future is headed, but we kind of get an idea that I don't know. I think the DSLR is slowly, I wouldn't say dying, that's a harsh word, but I think the future is mirrorless. So what do you say to these guys that are just, no, mirrorless, no, I'm never selling my DSLR, this, that? Is it adapt or die at this point, or what?
So if your D850, your D500, and your D5 or D6 is still going strong, it's still delivering what it would always deliver. And if you treat your gear well and maybe have to service it, although I've never serviced any of my gear, my D4 is still running, it's 10 years old.
Mine too.
then no worries. Like, stick with F. It's paying your bills. It's not costing you any more money. So I don't think DSLRs are dying from a use case perspective. I think what we're seeing here is that every manufacturer is realizing mirrorless is the future, and they are simply very slowly removing products and support.
Will we see another upgrade from the D850?
So a year ago, we all felt that was possible. I personally, and I have no idea what Nikon are up to. I personally, if the Z9 is all we think it's going to be, right? Let's just assume it's an A1 in every case it needs to be, and it might be better in some other specs. Let's just assume that. I think at that point, if you've got your 4-year-old D850 or your 5-year-old D500 and D5, because a lot of people didn't buy the D6 and they didn't need to, then you're going to be going, well, lenses aren't being supported anymore. There aren't really any new lenses. It's time to shift. And a professional will upgrade their gear, depending on what gear it is, once every, let's say, 4 to 8 years. So I just think there's just a natural transition, and clearly it's not being supported anymore. So I'd be very surprised if there was a D880 or a D900 or whatever you might call it at this stage. But the caveat is the Z9 rocks. And my theory is, a lot of people have said to me, that's it, man. A lot of people have said to me, there's no Z8. And it's like, of course, Nikon aren't going to just stop making cameras like the Z9 and then that's the end. I think what they're actually saying is there's no Z8 on the horizon, but I think we'll actually see the Z8 at the end of next year. Whatever that is. So, like
man,
I said,
I wanted to see a D880, man. That's
look, I'm not gospel, and it could totally happen.
I know.
I also think mirrorless are cheaper to make. Like once you've done the R&D.
I just bought a 200 f2 and I freaking love that thing.
Yeah, but the F to Z adapter is outstanding, and there's no penalty using it. So and have you got a D8? What have you packing in the F cameras? Vahagraphy?
I have a D4, 9 years old, D800, D850, and 2 Z6s. I just bought a Z50, and a couple of Fuji XH1s and X100T.
Well, you kind of got everything you need, and you can like see that box over there with the green sticker on it. That's got my 2 D850s in there. I haven't really pulled them out in 3 years, but I've still got all my kit, because what I do is I choose my kit based on the type of shoot, and I just haven't had a shoot where I thought, I have to have what that stuff does. Which for me, for my use case, all the Zs are fabulous. So
I was going to ask that question. D850, if it's great for you, if it's working for you, why do you want to upgrade? Is it the need for a new camera? Is it a different camera? If you want a dedicated video camera, why did you go for a dedicated video camera? Because if D850 does the job it is supposed to do, and if you're satisfied with it, is it the fear of being left behind? Is it an emotional thing, or is it an objective need? I don't know.
I think we love buying stuff. I think that's we love buying stuff, and it's like the D4. It was like, I'm actually more interested in higher megapixels than I am in speed, so that's why I didn't buy a D5. And so my D4 still does a fabulous job of being that flagship monster camera. It still works. I could have bought a D5 and a D6, but I didn't need to upgrade it. And I agree with you, Frames. Like, if your D850 is still working, I'm not sure what else they're going to add. Like, how many people have bought the D780? I feel like that wasn't a big success for Nikon. And I think
it's a fabulous camera.
I think it's a fabulous camera, but I think that probably showed Nikon. It's like, we've made a great hybrid camera here, but people are moving. They're moving on.
A great case in point, Matt, there about how kind of sort of Nikon probably tries the waters. Like if you look at the ZFC, they're trying to do the same thing with they try to do the same thing with the D780, and they're trying to see, if I do a D880, will it work? Because the D780 did work, and the D750 has much wider base compared to the D850. So if the D780 didn't work, then how can I be sure that I can invest all that money and get a meaningful return out of a D880? And now that a ZFC is working, they're getting positive signals from the market. So I think Nikon understands how to respond to what's going on right in the market, and then make the plans.
And look, they have to make, like, I don't know about you guys, but I've run my own business my entire adult life, and this is something that again frustrates me. Sometimes they have to make hard choices. I guarantee you, Vahagan, there is a D880. There's 25 D880 prototypes sitting in Nikon HQ, and they work and they are amazing. I can't guarantee you, but I'm highly confident that camera exists. And they threw everything at the 780. It's basically what they say, it's a Z6 and a Z50 together. So you've got the best of both worlds, kind of. But people are moving on, and it's just volumes. Like, the people that loved it, but they might have only sold 5,000 or 50,000 when they need to sell 250,000.
Yeah, no, you're right. But going back to the D4, my D4 has almost 500,000 clicks on it, and I don't spray and pray.
Oh.
I'm very selective of my frames.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how much that camera's been seen usage?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, amazing. That was an amazing legendary camera that came out. I love it. D3 too. But
the Ds. I don't agree with the complaints around the D6. I think Nikon knew the Z9 was coming, and it was like, again, Nikon have limited resources. So do we want an amazing Z9, or do we want a D6 that's still up near the top of its class anyway? And I would have preferred that they put money into the Z9. Yeah. So
the Z9
should they have called it the 5S? That is the question. D5S. That's what the market reacted with.
Yeah, the Z9. Nikon markets it as the best thing we've ever seen. So we're gonna have to wait and see.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's going to be their best camera ever, and I'm confident they didn't say that back on the 9th of March unless they already knew it then.
Yeah,
they're just such a conservative company, and they are so interested in not losing face, right? Like, that's just the nature of the beast. They already knew it, and it's just refinement.
They should come out. They should come out and give an update on what's going on. It's just silence,
Oh, well, if you look across the whole year, there has been little tidbits from, CEO. There was the marketing manager of China about 3 months came out and said, yeah, we will be getting it at the end of the year. So it's there. It's there if you look. I think we're just all so excited, and we're all ready, and we're all over it. Obviously, of the top 3, Nikon are the last, and we're all just like, okay, this headache's been going on for too long. I just want it to arrive, and I agree. But I agree. Yeah, there's no
frames. You have any other Nikon questions for Matt? I'm gonna go ahead and ask him a few other things, short answers, and we're gonna wrap this thing up.
No, I think we've covered the entire thing.
Okay, Matt, short answers here.
Yes, sir.
If you're not talking photography, if you're not doing photography, if you're not in front of the camera talking about your photography, lens reviews, what do you do? What are your hobbies?
Oh, that's a great question. I love cycling. I love music. I love films. I love going to the movies. I love my kids. I've got 2 girls who are 6 and 8. So a lot of my YouTube stuff's done after they go to bed, so I can spend time with them. And that probably fills my life largely these days. It depends which year you asked me. If 20 years ago, it would be going out. And the other weird thing is we've been in lockdown for almost 2 years. Which has really changed life. And I don't mind video games. I do play I actually gave up video games for about 10 years, but I've maybe lockdown is I've played a few more, but yeah.
That's cool.
My PS4. I'm really enjoying Horizon Zero Dawn. I know I'm late to the party, but that's a cracker of a game. It's perhaps the best open world game I've ever played, just because of the richness of the environment. There you go. Short answer.
Yeah.
That's a short answer from me.
yeah. I love the PS4. I have the PS4. I just haven't played it in a while, but I like Friday the 13th. That game.
I don't know that game.
Oh yeah,
I don't know.
Jason.
Oh, that sounds good. I'd like a PS5, but you know, chip shortages. Can you imagine? Like Sony would sell another 10 million of those tomorrow. They can't supply them, so everybody's struggling. So again, when people say, "Oh, Nikon can't get gear out," everybody can't get gear out. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you who your favorite rock band is.
Oh, geez, they're the sorts of questions that are really hard.
Just one.
Like rock, as in like hard, like like Guns N' Roses, or
who do you
just
think,
one? Because he wants to really make it difficult for you.
Well,
yeah.
There's
no, I don't have one, but anyway, off you go.
Who do you think the biggest band in the world is?
Oh God,
Beatles?
Yeah, look, they probably just from the years of staying prominent. But you know, Bowie, like I've when Bowie passed away, I think I sort of stopped and looked a little bit deeper into sort of watching him go from the 60s through to, you know, just a few years back, and just one man and his amazing talent. There are quite a few people like that. I think Prince, just what a god of music. And you know, even someone like George Michael, who had the voice of an angel. Like there's so many, there's not so many, but there are, and they're all in different genres. Like I think Metallica are an astonishing band. I know you've got them on your t-shirt there, but I'm cross genre. Like I love a band like Underworld, which is an English band, right? I actually enjoy Oasis, even so they are a Beatles derivative. Chet Faker, who's an Australian guy who I don't know whether you've heard of him in the States. He's awesome. I'm
a big Rush fan.
Rush.
Today's
Rush?
Tom Sawyer, get high on you. Yeah, the drummer passed away, Neil Peart. Best drummer. I mean, he was the best. But who would you photograph if you had the choice right now? Who would you photograph? A musician or politician? I mean, no, not a musician or an athlete.
Sorry, if I got an AK-47 or a Pentax in my hand. Sorry, no, that's a joke. It's a joke. Totally a joke.
Great question, though.
Oh God, that's so hard.
I don't know why I said politician. That was weird. One person that comes to mind that you love to photograph.
Oh man,
alive or dead?
Steve Jobs.
Oh,
Steve Jobs.
Great choice.
And I did actually get to see him live in San Francisco in like 2005, and I did get photographs of him. But it wasn't, I'd love to. And the reason why is when I sit down and have a portrait session, I really like to chat with people and get to understand them. And from everything that I've read about him, he was a really difficult character. So,
yeah,
I think you have to be to create what he did.
Yeah, that's right. You don't get genius without having some trade-offs, do you?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's lots of people. I don't want to just be stuck in that Steve Jobs realm. I think Elon Musk is really interesting in these days. I know he's a polarizing guy, but at the end of the day, he's pushing a lot of industries along. And sure, he's making a billion or two. But who, when you saw the vision of those two rockets coming down, and I'm just thinking, I'm watching science fiction here, and no, this was two real rockets landing for real. Like, how come no one else did that?
That's crazy.
So I don't know. I'm just interested in these big brains and people who
One
basically.
Last question for you.
Yes.
Is your dream photography gig?
Oh God.
Sorry, man. I just want to know. Inquiring minds want to know. YouTube.
Look, I reckon some of my photographic influences came from two sources that were in my house in the 70s and 80s. One was National Geographic. So let's go to some mountain or some wildlife reserve. I love the elements. If it's raining sideways, I'm happy, right? But the other option, of course, is my sister used to read Vogue magazine. And the beautiful, over-the-top, exquisite arrangements in a French, castle. So send me to the top of the mountain or get me with a supermodel and a stylist team and lighting and the whole 9 yards, and it's a $250,000 a day shoot. Boom. One of the other of those. How does that sound?
Fair enough. Well,
Yep.
Well, thank you.
How about
Matt.
you? Am I allowed to ask you? What about you? That
Go
same
for it.
question. I'd like to know both of you. What would be your dream shoots?
Go ahead, frames. Let me think about it.
Well, no, you go ahead. You put me in a spot now.
What?
You go
Yeah.
ahead first. It's your idea to ask this question.
Well, I know what my dream gig is. I would love to be the official photographer of my favorite rock band.
That's a good one.
So
that's
and go on tour with them, do their press, everything. I want to be there next to them. You know, I'm not too into politics or politicians, so forget that. But music, rock, and band and photography, I'm in. Like Ross Helfin. Ross Helfin is world's biggest rock photographer ever. All the big acts use him. You know, he has name recognition, but I can probably do what he does. You know. That's my
look.
dream
You, while you're thinking there, frames, it reminds me that actually the best gig I've ever had was when I was the embedded photographer with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, and we traveled to Europe for their first tour in a decade. And honestly, it was exactly what you're explaining. It's following a band as they're on tour. I had to file photographs every night, and I was basically with them from the moment they got up until the moment they went to sleep. And we traveled across like 5 countries. So you've reminded me, and that I do call that my best photographic experience in my life. And it was for the people and the music.
Oh, I want to check that out.
And the location. Have I made a video about that? Because it was a while ago now. I should. I will. It's coming.
Right.
Go frames.
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be Vladimir Putin.
Wow, nice one. Wow.
You like politics, huh?
Man, no.
He's an interesting man.
He's interesting. I don't know. That guy and maybe the president of China. I have different feelings about it.
Wait, he asked you gig, not person.
The leader, you know, shit. I hope YouTube doesn't ban it.
What? No.
Nothing. Yeah.
Anyway,
guys, these couple of guys.
Well, it's been fun, Matt. Frames.
It's absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
If you guys don't know Matt Irwin, go ahead and check him out.
Now you know.
Yeah.
Now we all know who Matt Irwin is.
Yeah,
Matt, it's been
who is this
wonderful. Yeah.
But I'm sure you guys all know who Matt Irwin is. And if you don't, go ahead and check him out, mattirwin.com. Go to YouTube, Matt Irwin Photography, and check him out. He's worth every minute you listen to him, especially if you're a Nikon shooter. It doesn't matter what you shoot. It's all cameras and lenses after all. So anyway, I want to thank you guys. Frames, thank you. Matt, it's been a pleasure. We'll do this again. And
let's do it again.
Matt, if you're in Los Angeles, give me a holler. Let's go shooting. Let's make a video.
I would love it. I would love it.
Right.
Thank you. I look forward to it. I look forward to moving out of my own city again. It would be amazing.
All right, guys. Well, rock and roll. Stay safe out there, and go out, shoot, have a good time, and we'll see you guys soon. Thank you for watching Vahagraphy Talk. Matt Irwin in the house. Rock and roll.